My name is Sam Jenks, and welcome to another episode of The Way We Source, a podcast hosted by Kodiak Hub, where we share our talks with procurement practitioners, leaders, experts, consultants, content gurus, and people that we find downright inspiring, diving into the role that sourcing and procurement plays in the way that we live. If you like today's episode, make sure to rate the program and provide us with a follow. Today, we have the pleasure of hosting a trailblazer in the ProcureTech space, a very impressive entrepreneur, and currently the co-founder and managing director at Archlet, Lukas Wawrla. Lukas, welcome to the show.
Hi, Sam. Nice to be here.
I hope that I pronounced your last name correctly or thereabouts. Wawrla? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's tough. Everyone has the same struggles, but yeah,
Okay.
you can imagine a E between the second W and the R. Wawrla. But you did it
Wawrla.
well. Blah, blah, blah is also an option.
Well, regardless how it's pronounced, we're very happy that you're here to join us, Lukas. Appreciate your time.
Same here.
We would love to ask you a question that we ask all our guests. What does sourcing and procurement, this space that we exist within, an odd one, some might say, what does it mean to you?
Yeah, it's a tricky question because as many, I kind of landed in procurement by coincidence, but I really started to love it, and now it's kind of my life, right? It sounds a bit silly, but when I in a tram or in a bus, I re-listen to procurement podcasts even just to stay up to date. And if I tell that to my friends, they usually think I'm crazy or they don't really believe me. So I feel like if you can build a passion around something, it doesn't really matter what it is. And that happened it happened with procurement for me. So I would say it's part of my life since we started the company.
That's fantastic. Could you tell us a little bit about your stumbling into procurement? How exactly did that happen for you?
Definitely. So when we were studying at ETH Zurich, which is a technical university here in Switzerland, and we actually were in a student consultancy. So we tried to kind of build the bridge between the industry in Switzerland and the academia, because companies kind of usually lack the insights from university, right? And we did a lot of project with companies in the industry, and one project was in procurement and sourcing. And actually, even though we all three founders worked on that project, we all studied robotics or electrical engineering. So to be quite frank, that project in the beginning, we really didn't really know what they wanted to solve, because we just realized there's a lot of data and they have kind of a problem because they didn't know what to do with the data. And then we really started to dig deeper and understood that they're running a sourcing event, collected tons of supplier offers, and wanted to make better decisions and create scenarios. And through that project, we actually stumbled into the procurement space and realized that companies are struggling when they make decisions in sourcing events.
Awesome. Well, hey, it's serendipitous, but the space it welcomes you with arms wide open. I know that much. Archlet, you guys are doing some amazing stuff. Would you mind just giving our listeners a little bit of a background as to what you and your team at Archlet are aiming to accomplish?
Definitely. So as mentioned, we started really kind of in that sourcing analysis area. And when we, maybe back to that founding story, our first client actually did all that analysis of RFPs in Excel. It was manually, and they really struggled to include additional parameters in their decision making, such as sustainability, risk, lead times, payment terms. It was purely usually a price focused decision. And they basically asked us if we can help them make more holistic decisions or create different options. Like, what if I go with the lowest cost supplier? What if I go with the most sustainable supplier? Or what if I do a combination of both, right? And optimize on cost, sustainability, and maybe distance to plant. And with that challenge in mind, we then developed a prototype back in the days. And we pitched that prototype, and they were quite amazed in what we were able to do in a few weeks. So we thought, well, if that's already impressive, why don't we just start a company and focus on that decision-making part in RFPs? And this is
Fantastic.
how we started. So we really at Archlet focus on making decisions better and faster in sourcing events. But by now we are supporting the whole end-to-end sourcing process. So from demand gathering to kind of inviting suppliers until awarding. You can do all these steps now in the Archlet platform.
Now, sourcing has existed in the ProcureTech space for quite some time. It was, I would say, kind of a boom maybe about 5 to 10 years ago of e-sourcing platforms. You saw, market leaders such as Scan Markets and, Coupa, Ariba, Valua. They were owning the space of sourcing and e-sourcing. What is it that Archlet is doing different, and why do you think that you guys have succeeded in kind of breaking into the market as a new kid on the block?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I even believe it started much earlier. It started 20 years ago when Free Market actually started their first online bidding tool, and then Emtoris came. So that was all around 1998. So there was already a first wave of e-sourcing, and now there was a second one a few years later. And the problem was, or at least that's how they explained us, is it always sounds really good on paper, right? You have a tool which helps you do your RFIs, RFPs, and RFQs.
Mm.
But when the end user doesn't get any value from the system and still has to analyze bits in Excel, spend hours in trying to understand the difference, make it comparable, prepare feedback, negotiation, and all that offline, they always ask kind of their superiors, like, why do I need to start the process in a tool when I end in Excel anyways?
Mm.
So very often, I think the end user didn't perceive enough value from these systems because in the end, it was done manually anyways. So adoption got quite down, and it's still tough to implement a sourcing tool because there is a lot of change management you need to manage, right? You have to onboard suppliers, you need to onboard buyers, you need to be able to have quite a flexibility to support different ways of analyzing and different ways of decision making.
Right.
But I think our approach was kind of solving that issue from not adding enough value for the end user when it's about really kind of preparing negotiations and executing them.
Very interesting. Your technology is also, applying more modern technologies maybe than some of the sourcing solutions of the past. And I would love to shift gears to talk a little bit about the adoption of new technologies, both at Archlet, but also kind of in the ProcureTech space, to be able to get your take on what you believe is kind of the next big movers and shakers. I mean, Gen AI is on the tips of everyone's tongue, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
in some of our discovery dialogue, you mentioned that you believe that this technology will really change sourcing. How so?
Yeah. So when we started the company and we came out of that university thinking, right, we had to learn and develop AI tools and neural networks. We trained them and optimized some parameters to make certain models better. And then we joined the industry and we realized, well, actually, they want us to replace Excel, right? No one really pushed us to build the next great AI tool because they just said, please help me to get rid of email and Excel.
Right.
So we kind of had to change gears a bit and understand, well, I think first we need to have some table stakes and just try to get rid of Excel and email. And if we do that well, we have the data foundation to then add additional technologies on top. And we always had the dream to implement more AI technology into our platform, but it was kind of always a bit of a limit in terms of where do we have enough use cases and where do we have enough data
Right.
to add enough value. And then Gen AI came, kind of the massive boom came around the corner, so to say, and it really opened us new perspectives and new opportunities to further help our users to get value out of the system. Because as you can imagine, an RFP can be quite qualitative, right?
Right.
Maybe not only numbers dominate. So with that technology, you can now really kind of understand unstructured or less structured data and further support your end users. I think that's why this technology has such a big impact, because before that we were only able to train models based on quantitative data. Now it's still quantitative data, but you translate words into numbers, and this has a massive impact. And that's why we see that this technology, I think, will definitely increase adoption in the source to contract area.
And this I can agree with you on. When it comes down to it, do you believe that procurement teams are mature? Is there a digital maturity to be able to, I understand, grasp, and adopt these new technologies without overwhelming teams, as you mentioned, right, that are used to working in Excel
Yeah,
and SharePoint and Word to be able to manage their RFPs?
I feel like it really depends on kind of the company, but sometimes even region or also category.
Sure.
However, I feel in general, sourcing is a lot of change management required. Probably
Mm.
every founder says that for each of their individual area.
Yeah.
I just feel like sourcing is definitely a bit of change management needed, because everyone did it for the last 10 years in a certain way,
Right.
and changing that is not so easy, right? I feel like the maturity of procurement teams in general, in digitalization in general, is probably not the highest compared to other functions. If you compare procurement to sales, it's still lacking massively. In sales, it's very common to have a CRM, a pipeline. You know exactly what you talk to your prospects, and you have a medic qualification script which you follow, and even a tool with AI supports you.
Right.
I've never seen this happening in procurement with suppliers, right? SRM,
Mm.
if you don't use Kodiak Hub, it's not that advanced, and people really don't really know what was talked with their suppliers last year. And I feel like, but they're more open. That's
Right.
changing, and they're more open to adopt technologies, because maybe it's also because they realize they actually add value.
Yeah.
And in the end, it's all about adding value. If you are forced to use a sourcing tool and it's only pain, why do you continue using it? You don't, because if
Mm.
there is no value for you, you don't want to use it. And on top, if your suppliers complain that it's pain for them as well, it's double pain. Pain for you to set it up, pain for them to quote.
Right.
So the effort and return is not in balance. Far too much effort and far too little return in value.
Mm.
But I feel like, yeah, the openness is there, and it increases. The
Yeah.
maturity increases.
And I think that willingness to change, as you mentioned, is so important. It's so central to adopting technology, whether it's, application of cutting edge technology or any real solutions to existing problems or traditional ways of working. You hit on something there that's interesting, right? The seller comes to the table with so much intelligence. They come to the table with
Yeah,
great solutions. I mean, our founder, Malin, she founded this company partially because she was fed up with seeing people like me running around with our glossy CRM solutions. And she thought to herself, well, why does the buy side have such a lack of solutions? There's a great quote by Salesforce co-founder Parker Harris, saying that businesses can't afford to react to what their customers want. They need to anticipate their needs. And for me, the launch of utilizing new cutting edge technology, generative AI in source to contract is definitely Archlet's way of anticipating your client's needs. How is it that you are ensuring that you're delighting your customers at every step?
yeah. So we're trying to build the most lovable sourcing tool in the market. And
Mm.
lovable for us means it's easy to use and it's actually adding value. And we do internal testings before we release a product. And if we can't use it without explanation, we send it back and make it easier.
Hmm.
And this is one step how we really try to make sure that we keep the simplicity. But then, of course, the kind of the added value is all driven by user feedback and procurement expert feedback. So we kind of try to listen as closely as possible to our users, and then test different assumptions, what and how we can add more value, and then implement that accordingly. One super concrete example is when we launched our GenAI intelligent assistant. We call it Spark, Archlet Spark. We actually decided we only launch it if the prompts you add into the chat help you to create different views in the system, because that was the feedback we got. They said, Archlet, we can analyze the data in all kinds of ways, but finding the right view is usually a challenge because it's usually everyone, for each tender, it's different. So we decided, why don't we launch Spark and the first use case is you type in, hi Spark, please compare supplier 1 versus baseline and group by region. And now you write that, and by clicking enter, we create that view for you. So you don't have to worry about where to click, how to streamline the data. You just write what you need and we create the view for you. And this really created wow effects. And we didn't come up with that idea by ourselves. We basically asked them how they see that, how we could help them more, and then we did it.
It sounds like a functionality that would create wows, and it sounds like a delightful feature as well. And obviously, the easiest way to delight is to get close to that customer feedback. So nice to hear those insights from you as a founder that stays close to the pulse of what your clients want and need. I'm curious also, you guys are in ways, starting to kind of disrupt this particular space. You are also providing a solution with a very sleek, I would say a very consumer like user interface and user experience. I've seen your guys' application, and an iPhone you take out of the box and you know how to use it, right? Like you just said, if a feature is shipped and we can't use it without explanation, we send it back and try again. Do you see though that because we run into it quite often, right? Procurement and sourcing in our organization, well, it works this way and it's complex and our processes look like these, and we're not going to shift to the tooling. How do you guys come past that particular, hurdle in adoption of your solution? Because I'm sure that you recognize that as well.
It is a challenge, because without adoption, no ROI, right? You can have the best ROI on paper,
sure,
but if no one uses it, there is no added value, and you don't kind of prove your return on invest. So we do a lot of things to try to increase adoption, and simplicity is one thing, but then especially in sourcing, where we believe we can increase adoption more is by using the power of data. Because if you, back to that CRM example, if you run a negotiation with a supplier, our system recognizes how they reacted from round 1 to the last round. And that data usually is lost. Only the winner gets kind of sent to the ERP, right? You know the winning price, but you don't know where they started, and you also don't know how the others performed. So what if we give you that data back next time you launch an RFP and help you to understand how they reacted last time? That's an added value you only get if you use us again, which ideally makes it very obvious to launch all the RFPs through Archlet, right? So adoption, increasing adoption is something we are definitely focusing on, and we didn't find, I think there's no holy grail, so we're really also testing different options how to further increase it.
Beyond the adoption piece, though, because I think that your solution is similar in ours in the way that you're striking the balance between standardization and configuration, right? Where can we standardize to make the user's experience excellent and as simple as possible, but also configure to the unique needs of the business? So where do you find that you strike that right balance in your capabilities?
It is tricky. I think the nature of being a cloud-based solution is that ideally all your clients have the same, or 95% of the same features, right? which is sometimes not easy to understand for clients because they feel like, but why can't I have this bubble in blue? I want it in, you want it in blue. It's green. Why is it green?
Yeah.
So we sometimes have this conversation. We just say, hey, look, unfortunately, it's not so easy for us to change color. It sounds stupid, but it's actually just not made to be different per each client.
Yeah.
So what we tried to do is we kind of have a basic setting and basic setup. And if you are a normal user, you're super well equipped with what you need. If you are more advanced, there's a settings area where you can untap or like unhide certain advanced features.
Okay, gotcha.
So you can press certain tick boxes to increase kind of the functionalities, but also the complexity. And that's kind of the balance we're trying to find. It should be simple for normal users,
Right.
but ideally you give some more kind of advanced features only for the ones who really want it, so they can activate them actively if they want to.
You know what I wonder sometimes though is, it's back to kind of the thing you were talking about with change. Is it maybe just the case that businesses, or I'm sorry, professionals working in sourcing and procurement in global businesses are actually just kind of feeling the subsequent nature of the bad tooling that they've had for years and years, that decided, yes, we'll build everything to your spec and exactly in the processes you need. And then that kind of comes back to bite you when you're trying to adopt solutions that are more standardized in certain aspects, right? How do you think that procurement will get past that hurdle though, right? Because that is the mindset that exists still in a lot of organizations when adopting new technology. Do you think that procurement can come past that, and how?
I mean, it's teamwork, Sam. Kodiak Hub helps definitely, because if you bring a new tool and they like it, that helps everyone in the market because they realize, well, actually, it actually adds value. It's easy to use. I love it. But if we bring up solutions and they're frustrated, I think that will harm the whole market again. So I always urge everyone to make tools more consumerized, because if we do that, that helps the whole software market, especially in procurement, but in all the other areas too, to convince people that we can help them do their jobs better and faster, and we don't add more work to their already super busy daily schedules.
Why did Archlet choose to go down the route of having a more consumer focused interface? I'm curious about that choice, because your solution looks very different than the classic, tech solution in the ProcureTech space, the ones of the past, so to say. And no hate to Ariba or Coupa, but they have very legacy interfaces in comparison, right? Why did you guys choose to go down that route? And this is going to give you a lot of demos, I hope, as well, Lucas, because I'm talking enough about the interface that I'm guessing people just want to see it at this point, but it is pretty sleek.
I think the answer is probably not as sophisticated as you would hope. I mean, to be honest, we never used an Ariba, a Coupa, or an Evalua before we started to build Archlet, right? We only listened to people. And based on these conversations, we built a software trying to help them run RFPs better and analyze better. So we basically had no reference points. We just started with we started only a couple of years ago. So we had the latest tech stack. We used the best possible front-end libraries.
Right.
We use Python, like a very powerful procurement language, coding language to actually build our algorithms. So we were kind of set up to build a great tool, which is obviously also a bit unfair. If you started 20 years ago, you don't have that. You don't have an older tech stack and anything. But also we didn't know anything else. Like, we just thought we need to build an easy tool which looks great and helps as much as possible. And that's what we did, because we didn't know any legacy systems.
That's interesting.
So I feel like sometimes it's really healthy to not be a expert in your area where you start a company. I always bring this example of, and people tell me, but but Lucas, how can you start a company in procurement? You've never been a buyer. I usually tell them, well, yes, that's true, but the founder of Uber also was never a taxi driver, and he revolutionized the whole industry without never being a taxi driver, right? So I feel like it's really healthy to be not biased with things companies did a certain way in the past.
It's a fantastic way of looking at things, and awesome to dare to be an entrepreneur in a space that you weren't in as well. I would love to double click on the aspect of being an entrepreneur. We've talked about it a little bit offline, right? Like, as an entrepreneur, you need to be ready to win and also lose really fast, right? The losses hopefully become a learning. But at the same time, it's very obvious when you talk to other entrepreneurs, and I have the luxury of talking to quite a few in our space and others within the Stockholm software as a service industry. And I've seen a red thread that many have quite an issue about talking about the tough times, about their losses. Oh, everything's going so good. We're getting investment. Yeah, 100% year on year growth, even when that's not really the case. I'm curious, why do you think that founders, generally speaking, have such a difficult time talking about losses?
So I feel like there are different angles looking at that. One thing is, as a founder, if you show that you're struggling as a company, that harms your client base, or you're always afraid that your clients will shy away because it's too much risk to work with you.
Right.
So you always try to show a shiny house, so to say, just to protect your existence. But it's interesting because our clients never shy away from communicating layoffs, like there are downgraded credit ratings, etc.
Right.
So
Right.
they're much more open with that. But obviously, because you don't have so much track record, everyone tries to kind of make sure that it looks pretty nice from outside. But the other hand side, I think, especially in the software as a service market, companies are often VC funded. So
Right.
they are really, and that's the thing. For example, I only learned that when we raised VC capital.
Right.
VC capital sounds like, wow, that's amazing. And it is amazing because it gives you the opportunity to build your own company. But it also comes with a lot of expectations. As you mentioned, you need to grow 100% per year. You need to ideally grow faster. You need to outperform the market. You need to win more clients faster, etc. So all of that brings you also in kind of a mindset of, hey, I need to do X, Y, Z to achieve this faster and ideally in half the time I said it.
Right.
So you get in that circle in thing where you just maybe don't reflect too much. And I think last year and also this year, that changed a lot in the founder area because, or in the founder landscape, because suddenly the investment market shifted.
Sure.
And when we raised capital, the main metric was growth. Grow at any cost, Archlet. Invest money to win clients, hire people, and be the next SAP, so to say.
Right. It was raise, burn cash, grow fast, and raise again.
Exactly.
Now it's profitability.
Correct. And suddenly that changed. But how do you change a company who was driven to burn money, which obviously doesn't make a lot of sense, but it was just the time of that bubble.
Right.
Then suddenly from day one to the other, they say, hey, but why are you not efficient? You burn too much money. You don't grow fast. You don't grow efficient enough.
Right.
And also you have too much people in your sales team, for example. So we had to adjust our course as well. And obviously that was not an easy time as a founder because you build up a company with that vision. You have a great kind of moral in the team. You build up teams across different countries, and then suddenly you need to course correct because otherwise you risk your existence. And I was struggling during that time because I knew that a lot of founders have the same situation, probably everyone who was VC funded, but literally no one talked about it. But now people open up more because they kind of went through the dip and have it under control again.
Yeah. I appreciate the vulnerability and sharing a little bit of that founder story and your insights, because there's so many that are out there listening that are thinking that they are sitting in that boat by themselves, but there's plenty of others that have been there before. Do you have any concrete tips to other entrepreneurs or ProcureTech founders that are out there that are listening right now, and they might just be starting or smack dab in the middle of their own journey as well? Things that maybe you think could help them along their way.
Yeah, I mean, number one, but that's not so easy. Find good partners to start your business. I think we are three founders. If I am down, one of them is up. If they are down, I'm up. So we really help each other, right? And it's a roller coaster. And having someone who's up when you're down is just amazing, because it never happened so far that all of us were down. One was always up. So you have no reason to stay down. That's definitely a super big help for me.
Great outlook.
Second, I'm leading go-to-market mainly. So I think, especially in these times, don't hire too many salespeople in the beginning, because it will be tough for you to learn and educate. Like in the beginning, you need to really learn, how does the market react? What's your product market fit or message market fit? So as a founder, you learn quickly because you did nothing else. But learning and educating is tough. So learn first, make yourself ready, and then be ready to educate or coach. That's definitely something we learned a lot.
Yeah, that's a great bit of insights. I mean, we've recognized so much as we've just now scaled our sales organization as well, right? That ICP definition and really nailing your product market fit beyond just the customer product market fit, right? Because you can have those early adopters that love your solution, but does the broader market understand your offering and need your offering, right? And are you selling to the right person? Those things are crucial before kind of really pushing the gas. And I totally agree with you on that. Yeah. Fantastic insights. And we're so happy that you took the time to be able to come out. We're unfortunately coming towards the end of our episode, but we would love to double click on Lukas, the person, not just the ProcureTech founder, and share a little bit of a moment as we talk about our Kodiak moment, a quick fire round where I'm just going to ask you some quick questions, and one word or one sentence answers suffice. Sound like a plan?
Good. Yes.
Fantastic. Let's go. What did you eat for breakfast this morning?
I don't eat breakfast.
I figured that was the case. Why?
I think, I don't really know, but I eat dinner and then I eat lunch and I drink water in the morning.
Well, you're looking great, Lukas, regardless. All right. Your spirit animal, do you have one? And if so, what is it?
I actually don't have one, but if I would choose one, it would be a bear, I think.
Okay. Why is that?
Because it's just one of my favorite animals. I love how when I saw a bear in the US, and it amazed me. And I don't know why, but it's just a good animal to be inspired from.
Very cool. A podcast or a book that you would recommend to our listeners, something that's on your bedside table or something you listen to on a weekly basis?
I definitely would recommend Smart Brevity as a book. Tell more with less words. I got it recommended by a potential partner, and started to listen in and read it. It's great. It helps you to answer questions faster without a lot of words in between.
Very cool. We appreciate you taking the time, though, to share some of your words with us today. And it was awesome having you on today's episode. If people want to get in touch with you or learn more about Archlet and what you guys are doing, what's the best way to do so?
I'm quite active on LinkedIn. Ideally, just connect with me, or otherwise, also you can go through our website, www.archlet.io. But besides that, super happy to connect. Always great to meet new people or get feedback.
And I think that I would really urge anybody to reach out to Lukas and to Archlet if you guys are looking for a new sourcing tool. You're really revolutionizing the space. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be on today's episode.
Thank you, Sam, and thanks for the initiative from Kodiak Hub. It's really a great thing you're doing. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Cheers.